Well, I know most people here, the people who don't know me, my name is Gil Perone. I've been collecting all adult life. Actually, I started at 10, so it goes way back. The serious collecting the last 50 years. I'm retiring from my day job on Thursday, and hopefully I'll be doing this more. This is what I enjoy. So I'm going to talk about Civil War swords, try to do an overview of the different types, all the branches. The military had their own swords, goes way back. And feel free to interrupt. You know, I'd rather have questions as I'm talking and make selection go longer. And but seriously, you can just interrupt. Before I start, I don't know if you remember, Brian had posted a couple of weeks ago an article on the U.S. Navy. Came out in 1797, launched our first ship. And I, not too long ago, and as I do with the Civil War swords, purchased this or trained for this. This is probably the earliest, what is, the earliest U.S. contracted pistol in our history. Came out in 1797. We didn't even have our armories out. They contracted this guy named McCormick to put together, he made 97 of these for the U.S. Navy. So that picture of the ship in 1797, these came out in 1797. Good chance this guy was on the ship. It's converted to percussion. Otherwise, it'd be worth an obscene amount of money, but still relatively valuable. It was less than 10 no. I'm sure there's probably more in someone's closet or something, but you know, I bought or traded for this. I wasn't even sure what it was. I read a lot. I read books, and you really should read before you start buying things. Now, remember this United States on the lock place, that this goes way back. So I made the trade and thinking, you know, I didn't have a lot of money into what I traded. Found out this is one of 97, possibly one of 10 left, converted. It's all correct, except they used to have a little brass returning band here, and obviously it's converted. There's all the correct markings. The wood's been refinished, unfortunately. But if you want to see or hold the earliest U.S. Marshall pistol that was actually given to the Navy first, this is it, the Robert McCormick pistol from 1797. So I thought I just saw Brian's post. I said, gotta wait a minute.
Yeah. What size ball goes out of that?
What's that?
What size ball goes out of that? It's like a mini ball type thing?
No, this is a big guy, 69 caliber. This thing, when you fired it, it's gonna kick. It's for close combat. Not accurate. I mean, it's out rifle. You know, I probably could maybe hit you from here. Most of the guns were not accurate till the Civil War when they were rifled. And then the Napoleonic tactics didn't work anymore. You just lined people up. And then when you shot, you killed them all. You know, before the rifle wars, you didn't have to.
It's a handheld shotgun.
This is like a handheld shotgun now. But this is, if you want to see it, come on up. So, getting back to the Civil War, and I'm going to cover Confederate presentation, etc. So each branch had their own weapons. This is the foot artillery sword. Gentleman has one for sale there. And these came out in 1833. Not very practical. I mean, they're short. They were supposed to, and they did use them to defend the artillery pieces. There's many reports in the Civil War that as they were being overrun, they just threw these and would turn around and ran. It's an unwieldy, it's not balanced. It looks cool. It's weighing. And so I was about to say, it descended from the French. We copied almost all this stuff from the French. The French copied this sword from the gladiator sword. Yeah, it has that Roman look. I think they're really cool. They're not practical. They've actually gone up, but the swords have gone down a lot in the last 10 years. These have gone up. So this is the foot artillery with the original scabbard. And what happened was it then progressed to something that looks like the cavalry sword. This was more practical. This came out, and the difference between artillery and cavalry is the curvature of the blade. So they realized that these things were useless, so they came out with this. However, the artillery crews were not this report after report, once they became challenged by the Confederates, they just ran. But this is the sword that replaced the gladiator's side sword. And again, this is based on the French patent of 1840. Before I forget, reading is everything. If you want to find, if you're serious about collecting swords, Civil War swords, this and the companion, this is Civil War cavalry and artillery sabers. There's another one, Civil War Army and presentation swords by John Tillman. This is the Bible of collecting. If you're serious about collecting, I still reference it. And a number of years ago, I picked up a cavalry sword, this is probably 20 years ago, and it just had a T on the blade. No date, no nothing, no manufacturer, just T. I said, gee, it looks like an 1860 light cavalry sword. What the hell is this T? It was in the book. It's Tomes from New York, a very small contract, private contract in 1861 to the Union Army, and he only made a couple of hundred. But people just pass the sword by because they don't know what it is. They don't sure if it's right, is it European? But if you ever see a cavalry sword, which using the cavalry swords here, the classic, this is the light cavalry sword, 1860. They made a heavier version, 1840. And at the Ricasso, there's nothing except the T, that's Tomes, New York, relatively rare, only a few hundred, contract wasn't that big. Not much more value, which always intrigued me. Get something super rare, instead of a $700 sword, maybe it's a $1,000 sword. In good, it's all condition sensitive. But again, you want this reference book if you're interested in collecting Civil War swords and the companion. And they came out, they were very expensive. There's been some reprints, you can get them at auction. They sell for like $40, $50. When they came out, it was like $150 each. So it's a great thing. So again, this was the artillery. The most common, the quintessential sword you'll see is the cavalry sword. It's one of the few that was actually used in combat. Most Civil War swords had very little combat use. Even the cavalry, as the war progressed, they became dismounted infantry. So they would show up, get off, and use their Sharps, use their Spencers, especially when the Spencer came out as a repeater. And they were more effective as dismounted. So there were some famous cavalry charges like Bradley Station where there was actually these sorts of combat with these guys. This is, again, if you need to buy or want one Civil War sword that actually has history and had combat use and won't break the bank, as they say, the market is down. These swords, like in this condition, which is a little above average, at the heyday it was 700 to 900. They don't break 600 anymore, and the market's down. So if you want to get a nice Civil War sword, this is what you get. With the original scabbard, it's all marked. The Union always marked their swords, where the Confederates almost never marked their swords. That's why if you buy a sword, they say it's Confederate, it's got some manufacturer's marks, be careful. And I've got a couple here, I'll show you. But this will have the manufacturer, either Ames or Roby or Shelby and Fisher, and the UX and the date. So this is the cavalry sword. It's not as curved, if you remember, as the artillery. So, because a lot of times you can feel this. People say, oh, it's cavalry sword. It's got a wider curve. It's artillery, which is rarer. It's not straight, but it's not an exaggerated curve. But this was probably the first, not this one, but my memory starts to fade, but I think the first sword I probably ever bought was a cavalry sword. Model 1860.
The baskets are different, right? The round for the cavalry and then the artillery.
Yeah, that's the other giveaway.
Just the single.
Flat, where this is three guide. And a lot of times, like this is an exceptional sword because a lot of times it's best because if they fell off the horse and, they got bent, because it's pretty hard. You got to put some force on this. But some are bent, it takes away a little bit. A lot of them are rewrapped. A lot of this leather just wears off. And again, as far as value and collectability, you want the original wrap, the brass wire, where a Confederate is usually copper wire. You can always tell by the top here, if it's been rewrapped, it's not smooth. This little rivet up here is nice and round. The rewrap ones, they have to pop this off, rewrap it, put it back on, so the rivets always like mushed. It's an easy. And there's usually inspection marks up here. So this is the caliber.
Hey, Gil, the scabbards. Sometimes you get them with dents in them. Yeah, if I just noticed when you pick it up, you rattle.
Yeah, they put up, sorry, go ahead.
No, they put the dent in so it stops the rattle.
Correct.
And it doesn't take away from the value of the, no.
Yeah.
That's what,
Not unless it's really, really banged up like it got ran over by a tractor, but now George is correct. This one is rattling. It's not, it's a little more collectible because it's, but practicality, they actually, someone used to put a couple of dents in so it's a little stiffer to come out and there was no rattling. You know, the famous Custer story, he didn't bring his sabers into battle at the Bighorn because he didn't want to give away his position because of the rattling of the sabers. And that didn't help him. He also didn't bring his 2 Gatling guns because he wanted to be count.
yes. And wait for getting everybody else to catch up.
Was they? Yeah. It's a degree. They didn't wait for Reno.
Those sword knots, did they really use those a lot?
Only the presentation.
Did I can't imagine being on a horse and this thing?
Yeah, but they were not practical. Actually, they were initially issued to the cavalry. There was an add-on, but you're right. They were not used. The presentation sword, which we'll go up to, almost always has a knot. And again, this is the presentation swords. Very rarely we used.
I mean, those thick leather, you would see, you know.
Yeah, they had the leather ones. They got cumbersome. Everything got tangled. They sort of stripped things down. So the combat units you never see the knots or the tassels.
Now on that artillery sword,
Which one?
this
The early one?
short, the short.
Yeah, the Roman one.
I saw a manual up at the museum that I help out once in a while, and that in the manual you were supposed to stab a horse when it jumps over
Correct.
the gun. Can you imagine trying to stick a horse out there?
Because they're coming at speed. There's all, you forget, there's all kinds of noises. Cannon going off, the commotion. You either stand there with this and wait for whatever a horse weighs. You know, I don't know what a horse weighs.
The main use of that was to clean up the shrubs, wasn't it?
To do what?
Clean the shrubs around the cannon.
Yeah, they could use them as.
Yeah, I had clear the shield. Yeah, clear the shield.
That's true. But yeah, they weren't used in combat. But I get a kick out of some of the reports where they said the Union threw their swords at the approaching cavalry or whatever, and just took off, which they usually did. So now, what is also, I was still in order. This is called an NCO sword, okay? U.S. made. I didn't bring the leather scabbard. I didn't bring some of the scabbards because this wouldn't damage them. But this was used, the sergeants, was the NCO uses. Now these, again, it's a flimsy blade, not a great weapon, not sharp on the edges. And they use this to direct the columns. If you see the movies and these were used to control, because they still use Napoleonic tactics, marching in units, lining up, so that they'd have their men line up. And that's why the casualty numbers were crazy, because with the rifle muskets, they just got mowed down. So this is an NCO sword with either a leather or metal scabbard. The earlier ones were leather, and the later ones were metal. And issued to the sergeants, the ones that control the companies. Again, it's an affordable sword. They've come down. You could probably get a nice one with the scabbard for $400, American made. I just bought today, which I need another sword like a hole in the head. Got literally several hundred swords. The European version, okay, a little more embellished here and on the scabbard. It's got a French mark. But some of these were imported to the U.S. But again, so we're not really combat swords. What gets confused with this NCO is the musician's sword. And again, if you look at the guard, the difference is there's no counter guard. They always look the same, except it doesn't have the wings here. These were literally used by musicians. And, to say they didn't really stand and fight is an understatement. And again, this was more just, again, to direct, if the band was marching, there'd be the band leader and have one of these. I think they're cool. Again, it's not a practical blade. It's too flimsy. It's always dated and more. You can get these. This is the original scabbard. It's a little crazed. But sometimes you get these flat nicked. And you're looking at $300. But after one Civil War sword, again, you only have $300. You can get yourself a musician's sword. I think they're cool. I mean, you put it next to a drum. You've got yourself a little thing going. And I got several drums at home. I've got several of these at home. And, but again, the difference is there's no chemical. So this is the musician's sword in the original scabbard. And again, they're very common. They made a fair number. And the fact that most bands were off the battlefield, most of these survived. And a lot of these you get flattened. And again, usually leather. The later variation is metal.
Well, there's no blood group on it,
No.
because it's decorative, correct?
Well, technically it's a blood group, but do look at it.
It's engravings, right?
No, it's not engraved. Plain.
yeah.
It's a plain. But no, again, it's more to direct march the band. This was not for combat. And it didn't need a blood group, but there's a single groove of four, they call it, in the middle. You gotta watch out with the scabbard. Sometimes when you hold them, if they're weak, you gotta put it like, that's like that. They can snap. So whenever you hold a leather scabbard, you really should hold it in the middle. This, anybody know what this is?
Columbus? No, it's medical.
It's medical. The medical staff says MS on it. Had their own sword. Like every branch of the army had a sword. This is, they're relatively rare. This one's engraved. But it's got the MS, it's got some stars, somewhat of a embellished. All the scabbards, the medical ones that I've seen, I own about 5. They're all metal. I have one, the rarest I have is, again, it looks like this, inscribed to a surgeon who had a couple of years in combat, then he was transferred to a hospital in Philadelphia to provide care. I have his sword, full inscription presentation, his photograph, all his records. It's kind of cool. Again, these are relatively rare. These are expensive. And you got to watch out. There are post-war versions of this. Very subtle difference in the handle. But a sword like this, it's still close to $2,000. And again, it wasn't, it was just medical stuff. Didn't say, maybe. Technically, they were supposed to defend themselves. There's no way the doctors, they never, ever picked up, I think, a weapon unless maybe somebody was shooting some of their patients. But the medical staff wasn't that big relative to 500,000 people in the army. So these are rare. And these, and I think they're, being a doctor myself, I was one and one, so I have a few. But these are more expensive than the cavalry, more expensive than the artillery, certainly everything else. But if you come up, take a look, they're pretty embellished, what they are. This one's got some use, obviously. So that's medical. We talked about the artillery. Before I forget, talked about, this is interesting. Now, if you look at it, it's a foot officer's sword. Almost every lieutenant had one, and some of the captains, certainly the majors and colonels and up had what they call staff and field, almost the identical sword, except there's a U.S. here in the guard. The foot officers, this is the classic one, and always the same design, always engraved, really nice eagle, U.S., the officers they used some of these in combat, but a lot of them were just appreciating their rank and dress. Now, a lot of these inscribed. I have probably 30 inscribed swords at home. And I only collect ones of people that were killed, captured, or wounded to make it, try to limit it. There's tons of them out there. And inscription makes the sword triple in value. Certainly if someone was killed or captured or was at famous battles. Now, if you look at the sword, it's a beautiful ruby sword, very good scabbard. It's got an inscription. If you research this guy, he was killed at Gettysburg, the Holy Grail, except the inscription is false. I bought this knowing that it was a bogus inscription. I just wanted the sword, and I didn't pay what, and the auction house was legit. They said, questionable signature. Well, and if you take a look at it, you have to be really careful when you buy inscribed stuff, because a lot of it's bogus. If you look at it, it looks right, that looks period, except it's not spaced properly. The lines have to be equally distant all the way down. If you get two that are a little closer together, it's probably bogus. The jewelers that made these swords were meticulous. There was never something that was off. These things were not made in the battlefield, they were made back in New York or Philadelphia. And yes, even though the front looks right, the spacing is wrong. And it's good to lecture and show people, but I bought it because it's one of the nicest ruby foot-off swords, you could buy, and I bought it for the value of the sword. The inscription, some people say, well, it takes away from the value. Not really. I think it's just a good. I also might pay for it. It didn't matter, but I just think it's good to see what the fakes look like. Because be very, very careful. If you're going to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for an inscribed sword with history, like killed at Gettysburg, it's almost as bad as someone selling you a rusty knife. Say it was found on the Iwo Jima beach. George knows that story. It's, again, unfortunately, like everything else, starting in the 50s, but took off in the 60s, fakes were just coming out of the woodwork. Confederate swords, and you can't really fake a gun that much. But the swords, Confederate fakes, the whole sword is fake. Not just the inscription, because there's so much money in them that you be careful when you buy a Confederate sword. It always advertised on eBay, Confederate, 90% of bogus. Or inscription, if you get an inscription that has the history like this has, killed at Gettysburg, you want ironclad provenance, you want to know who had it, and again, show it to someone. Like I could tell, now I'm sure I could be fooled too, but 98% of the time I could tell if the inscription is right because I know what the fonts look like and I know how they should be spaced. And that's why I over 50 years, I collect almost 30 of these guys that are all correct, except for this one. I bought this one on purpose. So this is just a little history, a little interesting thing about the history. Then going on to presentation swords, this was never presented. But if you want to come up, this is one of the most embellished, goddess of liberty. I mean, this is a beautiful sword. And it has the plaque, it should be inscribed right here. Probably came out late Civil War. Beautiful blade. I just had to have it. I said, this is one of the nicest scabbards. This would be a high-end presentation sword. And I just bought this about a year ago. A guy called me a picker that calls me once in a while. I was at a tag sale. He bought this, and I was like, he paid for it. I wanted to know, I said, what do you want for it? He said, I got to get $1,000. I couldn't get the money out fast enough. Because even without being inscribed, when you have this type of work on the sword, if you look at the grip, it's worth a lot more. And it's not, I'm not reselling it, but if you want to come up and see what a really high-grade presentation sword is, this is one of them. It's made in Europe. And you always tell, a European sword, they have a little screw here. A quick way to tell if a sword is like, I was looking at borrowed swords, and they had the wrong scabbard for many reasons, but European swords have to have this little screw. All the European swords that came over, mostly from France, the American swords never, ever, ever have a screw. The scabbard is plain on both sides. Just a quick, again, you try and look at something, you try and get an idea, is it right, is this married? A lot of times the scabbards are married to the swords. If it has that little screw, it's European, so then you take it from there. This one, you forget where it's made. it was Clawberg, so 1863, so it's German. It's got the Lady Liberty on it, and it's got a classic grip that they all came out of Germany with that grip, not here. But anyways, it's
A tag sale.
he got it at a tag sale. Don't tell me what he paid.
This stuff is out there.
It's still out. This is a year ago. But I got this less than a year ago. He called me right up. He says, "Gil, I have something you might be interested." I actually have a friend that I spoke to who's interested. I'll give you first crack. I said, "What are you gonna get?" He said, 1,000. But so he put, what do you pay? Who knows? $100.
Did he send you the picture first and then you went with some?
No, he lives in my town.
Oh.
He lives 5 minutes away. Just drove all the way. That's the other thing is if someone tells you they have something, he who hesitates is lost. If you're not there, I tell people, "Oh, I got this. I'll come over next week," or anything good is gone. There's many people looking for the same stuff. And staying on the presentation vein, this is again, it's got a Zouave down here, one of the nicest presentation swords you'll have. And this guy was the quartermaster. When I bought it, I knew the sword. This was knocked off. I had a side of the stack on. And it came like that. I saw the sword, saw the inscription. I said, "I want the sword, the original knot. Quartermaster of 1863, whatever. One could be 63 or 64, 63. And so I got the sword, and I started researching it. He was the quartermaster for the Union Army, Army of the Potomac. The guy, #1 guy. I mean, several people have tried to buy this, and everything, eventually will sell when I get tired of it or get older. But it's kind of cool because quartermasters are quartermasters. They sell at home. They don't go for the money that the combat swords go for. But to have, again, beautifully inscribed blade, it still has the washer, and this guy was the quartermaster to the Union Army. But originally I was a McClellan. And just a beautiful sword. You have a Zouave here in relief. These are the holy grails of presentation swords.
Gil, who was making the presentations?
Well, usually the people under 90% of presentations, I should say 90, you say 70% are from the people below the colonel, the captain, whatever, that appreciated, because a lot of the officers were they just slaughtered this, put them in Grant, Cold Harbor. He should have been court-martialed for that, but they had no regard for life. A lot of this, like every Vietnam, any war, they respected the men. And so if the men appreciated the officer, they at some point presented a sword. The other group are...
After the war, after the conflict?
Not a high percentage. You'll see there are some, and you can always tell by the date, counts after April 65. Not as many as you would think. When the war ended, people were tired. It just wiped it. They kept the loss of life was they just wanted to go home. And not many were, I got 1 or 2, but they're rare, not worth as much, believe it or not. So there weren't things presented during the war. The other group, about 30% of them, I'm guessing, but presented to people as they were off to war. Townspeople, colleagues at work. I've got several. Presented to so-and-so by their friends, esteemed friend, whatever, in Boston. So people as a well, thank you for your service type of thing, here's a sword. So a good third of them are presented before they go in, but the majority, while they're in, by their subordinates, and a small percentage after. And, but again, just be careful. This is a little more of a plain Jane presentation. Foot off is a sword, just like the Roby. The scabbard's a little beat up. But again, the inscription, beautiful. U.S., eagles, the whole thing. And what did this guy do? He got respected. Aim sword. Oh, William Hodges. I have actually at home. I have his photo. I have all his records. He was killed April 6, 1865, one of the last days of the war in Ironbridge, Virginia. So again, this is the guy. You can see here the inscription. This is takes the whole mount. This was presented by, I think, his colleagues. I'll see together. But mass infantry. So this is the typical presentation sword. They're not usually as embellished as these. Usually foot off as a sword, presented by his troops. Guy got killed 9 days before the Washington. Just his time was up. Another rare one. Someone was looking at this before.
That's what I'm taking on.
Was that?
That's the one I'm taking.
You're taking on. Sure, yeah, I accept cash, check.
Because you could add it.
But one of the rarest, a naval presentation. The Navy wasn't that big. They weren't big into swords and boat, yeah, enough. But this is USA. It's got the rope, it's got the sharpening. So it's a classic naval sword in overall perspective, but it's solid silver. Silver grip, incredible blade. And the thing about this, and the name of the sailor, or he's an ensign, is here. It's in two spots. But if you look at this closely, there's something that was X'd out. Apparently, this was supposed to go to someone else, and either the guy died or quit or left or got court-martialed. I can't kind of make out the name, but I guess they said, oh, gee, we'll take the sword. Maybe he got it on sale because this is second. But if you look here, there's someone else's name, and I have the records of this guy. The guy that this was presented to, this is torn the knot, but this is just an incredible, forget the silver grip, naval. I only have 2 in my collection, and I have a couple hundred swords, but I try to limit, now to the best I can afford, but this is, if you want to see a rare sword, it's kind of cool with the U.S. Navy, USM up there, but this is classic. If you see a sword, a little serpent here, a little serpent here at the dread, that's naval, right off the bat, and they're relatively rare.
But they're still issued today the same style.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
The foot off the style, yeah.
Yeah, the dolphins and everything else, same style, good. Not as ornate as that.
Yeah. Well, this is a presentation. It says you right. This should the USN here.
Yeah, I got a couple of presentations, but they're all, after the war. When I did my presentation, I showed the German Navy sword from the 20s and then the American Navy sword from the 60s. Yeah, they sell two.
Oh, American Navy.
Americans, so.
Yeah, that's true.
USA's have been given that. You never showed me that one, Gil.
This one?
I never know.
Yeah. You have to combine. It's right next to the Gatling. Seriously, got a rack of presentations right on the top.
So let's slow down. Get his. You see that? He's like, oh, next time I'm up with it.
So, and then back on the naval vein, this is the precursor. This is the 1831. This was considered a little unusual. It's almost like a Roman blade. Boys, when you see a big handguard like that, that's naval. They also always have rack numbers. They were big on rack numbers because things were kept. The sailors didn't get out. It's like a side of a ship. So this would be early one. You see there's the rack numbers there, 3, possibly the sailor's number on it. Because a lot of the soldiers and sailors had numbers assigned to them. They could hear him.
So this they didn't had a scabbard then?
I had a scabbard.
Oh, yeah.
The scabbard is the hardest part. To give you an idea of value, this has also held its value. This sword as is $750 all day. With the scabbard, leather, on a ship, $1,500 and up. I have a couple of these, only have 1 scabbard. I think I have 4 of these, and 3 of these. But yes, they did have a scabbard. It wasn't practical. It should have been a metal scabbard. Imagine this is on the side of the ship all day, and that's why you don't find them. But these I just like the feel, especially with the scale grip. I mean, it's good. You can hold on to it. It's a little unwieldy. They replaced it with the one that's more common. This is the model 1860 cutlass by Ames. They're all dated 1862. They're all A by Ames. This is a little more practical. It's easier to, because they did have some, combat aboard the ships a whole lot because the South didn't have much of a navy. And we say, the wire's missing. When this was issued in 62, this had a brass wire. For some reason, whoever the powers to be in the Navy, it's the word, they removed it. I guess they thought maybe it would rust that. So you almost never, of 100 of these, you may find one with the bracket on the wire still on. And if the wire is on, it means it was an issue, just surplus somewhere. A little more formidable guard, but this is a classic, and they're all dated 62, they're all Ames. They also come in a scabbard, a leather scabbard. And the scabbard is interesting. It has rivets all the way down the side. I should have brought my other one, but I do have a scabbard, more of a scabbard. But there's a rivet at the tip. That last rivet is always missing. On the few that I've seen, including my own, the scabbard, I have all, whatever it is, 28 rivets. I don't have the last one. If you're going to show after the show, so you find one. And again, this is a little less valuable in that. These are only a few $100s. But if you have the scabbard, all the rivets, this breaks 1,000. Not like this guy. This one, everybody wants this one because they didn't make a lot. They made a lot of these. It's not a bad sword. You know, it's balanced.
I've seen those two with the cutout on them.
Oh, yeah.
With USN. Well,
90%, 95% in the bonus.
okay.
There's a USN cutout, and that if there was a number of those made, I don't have one because I don't trust them. The fakes are so good. Yes, the USN, be very, very careful.
So that wasn't like a post-war reissue or something for the 80s or 90s.
At one period, I honestly don't know if it was in the beginning. I suspect it was in the beginning. And they said, well, it's not practical. You know, and they stopped and just went to the solid knuckle guard. So yes, there is a USN on some. Everyone I've seen is fake.
Okay.
So be careful.
Yeah.
If you're real, they'd be worth a fair amount of money if they weren't fake. So let's see, we did the presentations, artillery, we did Matapol. Here's what is it just? Okay, Confederate. Before we get to the swords, this is a classic Bowie knife. Here, Confederate, again, be very careful. A lot of the things they say are Confederate Bowie knives are not. A lot of them are post-war, but this is like the classic Bowie knife. And these are made from a file. If you come up and you look closely, you can still see the little marks. You know, a file has all those like it's the blacksmiths made these for the Confederate Army. Talking about tag sale. This wasn't last year. I remember driving to work, I see a sign, and nicely, not 20, but not probably still nuts, but 20, 25 years ago, I'm driving to work on a Friday, I see a sign, tag sale. It's supposed to be in my office. Tag? It's 24. And it was, I think this car said, listen to the Bronx, was heading down the pull up, all kinds of people there that had already been going on for an hour or two. And the guy worked for the Westchester Museum, Westchester Historical Society. He died, old guy. And he had a few weapons. I see people walking out with a couple of things. I said, oh, damn, I missed it. So I'm walking around. One house, there's nothing left. You go in the backyard, see for extra job. I see a toolbox. You've been a toolbox with a sign, all night, $25. And I look at it and I go, all right, this can't be. It can't be. So even back then, this thing was worth a couple of thousand. This put the central, the grip, the whole thing. You don't get it better than this. I've turned down $3,000 for this. And so I get it. I'm standing online. A guy comes up to me and goes, oh, man, my father collects old knives. That's a cool knife. So the guy, I said, don't just stand there. He says, wait, I asked you for it. I said, $25. So he goes, I'm kind of thinking it's a birthday, you know, this guy, really, in line. He said, I'll give you $50. I'll give you money. Don't even wait online. They can't let it go for 50. He goes, and he's looking at it. He goes, it's just cool. I'm not sure what it is, but I father love it. How about 100? I said, oh, no, 100. And I said, I'll play this game too. So he goes, hey, I take 100. He goes, well, what do you want for it? No, it's 25 years ago. How's 2,000? And the guy looked at me and said, you know where he is? It's the Peps. So I was afraid that people at the sale, when I heard this, is that all of a sudden $25. So I got out there, I could throw the money out, I just took all of it. But
$25 at a tag. So you don't get these. There was no internet back then. There wasn't. The guy, and it still had, which is fired his, had his enrolled date from the Historical Society. So I see this actually. So he's still with inventory now. Still on. So, and believe it or not, true story, and George knows it, I had another one. My folks, just before they died, in Florida. And that was really a good picking ground for a long time. And again, 20 years ago or so, basically these not tag sales, antique shops, and they're big on pawn shops. Everything goes to a pawn shop. They're all over the place. So I used to go with my kids, for hours. And I found the pistol, I have a surrounding high power, nothing to do with this. Belgium made, when Germany invaded Belgium, they made them produce the high powers, and they're all walking more. I've got a beauty, something I carry it, shoot it. Belgium high power in the holsters, matching second the holster clip. I see in the case, wow, how much did that? He goes, oh, that's consignment. It's $325. It's not negotiable. I said, okay, I'll take it. So he goes, all right, I see your driver's license. He said, no, it's got to be a Florida driver's license. I said, yeah, but I have a full county in New York. No. Then he goes, what are you doing out here? I said, I'm visiting my folks. They were can one of them come with the driver's license? I grabbed my mother, drag her, and I said, just show them the license. No, pay no registry, no pistol class, nothing like that. So, anyways, you can still find stuff. I'm down in Florida, and again, it's like deja vu, a box, and any knife, $25. Say pick $25. And it was not quite as nice as this, but it had the original scabbard. Now, the scabbard's almost impossible. They're wooden a lot of times. If you do find one, the mounts are tin, not bricks, because the South didn't have. You see a wooden scabbard with tin mounts, it's Confederate, unless it's a copy. But so there's a movie with the thing, so I buy it, and I'm back home. I'm back at a gun show, and Dave Taylor, who's probably the biggest Civil War dealer in the United States, was there, and I show it to him. He goes, "What you pay for it?" I said, $25. He says, "Now I know it's real." He said, "I'll give you $3,500 for it right now." I already had this one. I said, "Geez, it won't. I'll buy something. I'll give you $3,500. That's a lot of money. 20 years is long. Now, 20 years ago, for something you paid $25 for, the son of a gun literally gives you cash, takes the knife, walks across the aisle, and sells it to the guy that runs the horse show for $4,000. I said, "You son of a gun." He said, "What are you complaining about? You paid $25, they gave you $3,500. You begrudge these $500 a day." But that's the nature of the beast. Nature of the beast. So anyways, you want to see one? Take a look. Look at the marks. If you ever seen, I've got a couple of these. I even have smaller versions. If you see something, and just memorize this, still in a tag sale, from a file, with an iron handguard, and this type of grip, look at everything, it's real. And they're out there, because people have no idea. So there's, now Confederate swords themselves, I've got two, totally correct, except this script has been replaced. Again, overview, Confederate swords have brass belts, not iron. So you see brass and large ring, there's a good chance that the scabbard is Confederates and hopefully the school shorters. They're almost always never long. Like this one, I think it's at Cannonsville, I think. Yeah, this is the Cannonsville Type 3, which means it was out of North Carolina from the Confederate States Armory. So this is a 100% correct, little worn. They're grips, a lot of times with pigskin, not leather. So look at this. It's, it's got this sort of like funky, fragile grip with the original wire. And plain weight. The casting is a little rust. The brass they did have, if you look under magnifier, you see little pits in it. That's another giveaway. The Confederate armories didn't have the sophistication of the U.S. armories, and so they brushed stuff out. They didn't have the same materials we had. But again, large rings, brass, this pigskin type of wrap, not marked.
So this is rare.
The guard is thinner.
The guard center. So this is from North Carolina, the Kingsville Type 3. And a sword like this, even in this condition now, is $4,000 or $5,000. Yeah, they've gone up. I probably paid close to 15 years ago. I was happy to have it. As much as a lot of this stuff is tanking, this stuff, well, it's Confederate. There's only so much. So here's another one. Same thing, but I don't think the wings are. I don't think these somethings are. And they're original. Brass, now, the bigger the ring, the more likely it's Confederate. The other thing that's not original, if you look at it, the wire's correct, but this is a rewrap. It's just too good. And it's not the same type of material. They did a good job. You can't even see when they put this back on.
I had a friend of mine could rewrap them and not have to take it apart.
That's true.
He was really good at it.
That's good. I got a guy that rewraps them, but he still takes it apart. And no blade, classic 1860 style thin. See how thin this is? It's flat, not round. It's another giveaway. Crude scabbard. The metal's not the same. This teach could be from Georgia, right? Oh, this is also, this is a Frolic from also North Carolina, and the scabbard is, Georgia. I did some of that. This one's got the Georgia scabbard. And this, even with the rewrap, is still $5,000. And again, if this was Union, $600 sword. That's full time. Yeah, this to get one that's right. They used to be they were 3,000 forever, 3,500. Now they're 4,500 or 5,000. There's not that many left. On the market, but you can see. But look how flat this is. Again, that's the giveaway. The ring's the giveaway. The brass is the giveaway. That I can see one of these swords from ear to you. I can tell it's Confederate. Yeah, usually.
The Confederates had to import a lot of stuff. When I was a kid, my friend had a Confederate saber. It was on white canvas, interlocking CS. The saber straps were leather and sewn to the belt. And the sword was all iron. All the scabbard, the grip, the guard, everything. It was all iron. You're never going to be able to figure out what it was. Still in the family, they wouldn't part. And it came from his grandfather from upstate New York. He was a doctor. Back during the Depression, people couldn't pay him. So he would take antiques in payment.
I just, there was part of one carving come in a couple of years ago.
Nice.
I'll take that. New York City? Yeah, I'll take that. She came in with a shopping bag. That's interrupted. A shopping bag. I see the barrel sticking out. She said, this is my uncle's. He brought it back. Ammo, clips, New York City. New York City. Actually, Edgar said took a taxi. That's at least a somewhat.
The only iron sword that's made in the United States was by Tiffany, right?
Tiffany. That was an import.
I can't remember looking if there was a...
Yours sounds like
It's good, yeah.
non-armory, non-regulation blacksmith. They didn't have weapons. That's why these things all came from. There was no facts. There is a couple army that put out a small number, but that thing, all iron, the way you describe it, you have to see it. I bet is correct, and I bet came from just some local blacksmith who just forged some swords.
That maybe
but it's all the same material.
See, I didn't have the knowledge then that I have now.
Yes.
So, what to look for and, manufacturer secondary.
That's not a typical one. Now you can see it. I can tell you that. But once you say it's all the same material, some black stuff is good. I love white guys. Yeah, I bet you that's what it was. They may have imported. They may have got the blade from Europe and then just built around it.
Right.
Because they did that. They got a lot of blades from onto the blockade. Stop me, yes, it's three. But they would just get blades from Franklin's.
Well, I tried getting that out of London for so long. It couldn't part of it,
My brother-in-law from Alabama, my great-grandfather was in the Civil War. When he was a kid, they had his sword in a barrel in the backyard, just sitting there. They go around, they play with it, sitting in there. Marries my sister, and he's telling his sister, get that sword. I want that sword. Gone.
I was fortunate enough to get my great-great-grandfather's sword because it was digging it up after he died. His wife kept it, and then when she died, it was distributed to the kids. So he was a sergeant in 9th New York, and lately, after he mustered at 9th New York mustered out, he joined the 13th New York Volunteer Cavalry, and I have his saber.
Oh, that's cool.
And I got his roll book. He was first sergeant at Company C. So I got those two items from my grandma.
That's cool.
And so at a funeral, I was talking, no, I'm sorry, the sword did not come from my grandma. She had the roll book. When I knew where the other stuff went. See, one of my cousins, he got the pistols, he sold them, or buy parts.
Yeah.
So I mentioned to my cousin about his father's funeral. I said, yeah, I understood that your father had the cavalry saber. He goes, oh yeah, they got that. I don't know where it is. I think it's out in the garage. You wanted to say it, And he goes, and there's a big document that goes with it. It used to be on the wall. My father had it with the sword. Well, at the funeral, he brings them and shows it to me. And what it was is GAR post, the widow's certificate for his service at post number 11 in Brooklyn. And so he looks at me, he goes, my brother doesn't care about it. I don't care about it. You want it? Get altered. And then at his mother's, he found a document, real bad shape, this high, this wide. He goes, my mother had this. We didn't even know we had it. It was this discharge document from the 9th New York. And it said, this, William Ingersoll was Sergeant and member of Company F, 9th New York Volunteer Infantry, Hawkins Watts. And it's sold by his company commander and Hawkins signed it. York also.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how people don't care.
I love it like feeling. It's not in here.
The stuff still less and less, but in garages and attics, and I don't give a kid like this. I know it was over film. Right. So that's it. Any questions? Any more questions?
Thanks.
Oh, that was great. Thank you, Gil. Doing welcomes. So
What's that?
You got any loose?